Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be presenting today to you. As you can probably tell by what's on the screen, we're just going to be talking about the big legal questions when it comes to online wills. This is an area that I personally am really excited about because it's been pretty foggy due to online wills being very new relatively to the legal world. So excited to get stuck in and answer some of your questions. A little bit about what we can expect today from the session. So we'll go through a bit of an intro about myself and who I am, who Gathered Here is, what we do. We'll touch on what an online will actually is and also some of the barriers that people may encounter, such as quite a few of us watching, I bet, don't have a will. So we'll talk about those barriers people face and why they haven't got a will in place. We'll then jump into some of the big legal questions that come across my team and I's desk relating to wills and online wills in general. We'll chat about who an online will may be suited for and who should probably think about going down an alternative avenue, like paying a visit to the solicitor's office. We'll touch on some case studies. So some actual clients that Gathered Here has helped navigate that start to finish end of life process using a Gathered Here will. And of course, everybody's data and names are going to be kept completely private. And then we'll do a little bit of a wrap up. And hopefully this should go for about 20 to 30 minutes if I don't yap too much. So a little bit about myself. Hi, my name's Rica Ehlers. I'm currently the senior probate lawyer over at Gathered Here Legal, and I've just been in this role for around a year and a half now, really loving it. Prior to this, I was heading up the Wills and Estates team over at Steindl Bradley and Associates, and I've done a little bit of time dabbling in academics over at the Queensland University of Technology as well. So basically, all you need to know about me is that I'm a massive wills and estates nerd. And if you've met me, I've probably asked you, have you got an updated will? And speaking on that point, if you're watching this presentation today and you don't have a will, or perhaps you don't have an updated will, it might be a good time to think about why while you go along with me on this journey. Hopefully some of the answers to your questions will be provided. So just to cover off, I've probably drafted around 450 traditional solicitor wills at this point in time. And as far as assisting families goes, we're looking at around 400 plus families that have been assisted, following the loss of a loved one and assisting that family with navigating that end of life process. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that may look like for each individual person while we're going through the presentation today. All right, a little bit about Gathered Here. So this is a very high sort of snapshot of our ecosystem, but it's good to provide some context. So we did start 6 years ago as a funeral comparison website of all things. This was done with the purpose to bring transparency and greater accessibility to the end of life space, which is what we've continued to do and expand upon. So in terms of funerals, we do currently have the largest funeral comparison database in Australia. People can compare prices and review anything really in relation to funerals. So we're talking directors, celebrants, masons, coffins, and anything to do with funerals, we've got it covered. And our online wills. So that's probably what we're most known for these days, but we are furthering our mission to make this space accessible. So in 2020, as a part of this, we created a will writing platform. That's so that anybody, regardless of age, income, their location, can create a will for free on our website, completely for free, with free updates for life as well, just to make sure that, their loved ones can also be protected in the future. And since we started this offering, we're now at over, I believe, 70,000 wills having been created on our platform, which is pretty phenomenal. And we're currently at 3,500 plus five-star reviews, which is really, really awesome. And we're really, really proud to be able to offer that product to society, just make the world a bit of a better place. Obviously, if an online will isn't going to fit the bill, so if it's something slightly more complicated, we do have solicitors on our team that are able to draft a bespoke will on request. An example of this, something that came across my desk in recent times, I had a lady who wanted to leave her estate to her children, but she wanted them to pass a drug test before they were able to inherit. So that was a really unusual situation and something that likely wouldn't be covered by the scope of our online wills as they are at the moment. Definitely something to get a lawyer involved in there. We do a lot of social impact work that we're really proud of as well. So we do work with charities and sporting clubs, universities too, so they can offer free wills to their supporters. And if their donors want to say thank you, they can also leave a gift to that organisation if they'd like to, with absolutely no pressure to, of course. Just as a bit of a figure, to date, we've, I believe, raised close to 450 million in future revenue for close to 1,000 of our amazing partners and causes. So it's pretty exciting stuff. Just the last little limb of this this bird eye view of gathered here is our probate team and our legal team. So really that's where me and my team come in the most, and we're assisting people at the end. So that's when somebody's passed away and they've just got no idea what to do from here. That's when we step in. And yeah, hopefully their loved one has left a will, because that makes life a whole lot easier for them typically. This usually involves applying for things such as probate and letters of administration, and I'll get a little bit into that further along as we go as to what those things actually mean. So obviously there's a lot going on, but just for today's session, we're going to focus really on wills and a little bit about probate too. That being said, just to get us all on the same page, I think it's a good question to ask, what even is a will and what is an online will? What are we talking about? Are they just buzzwords that we're throwing around? So, as a quick recap, a will is simply put a document that is formal, that you record who you want your stuff to go to when you pass away, right? You'll hear the word estate being thrown around. Usually in this context, that just means everything you own in your sole name when you pass away. That's your estate. Normally, you'd be appointing an executor and a backup executor in your will document, and that's just the person who's going to sort everything out for you. So it's the person you trust the most in the whole world to adhere to your wishes and your values as recorded in your will document. Other cool things you can do in a will is appoint guardians for your children and fur children. Make, preferences as to how you'd like your body to be disposed of. Lots of really interesting and important things. In terms of an online will, it's exactly the same as a regular will. It's just created online. So say through the help of Gathered Here, for example, and then printed and signed and executed just like a normal will. So it's exactly the same. When we're talking about wills, we're talking about online wills too. Somebody once told me that it's just good manners to leave a will behind. And I have to say, after working in this field, I wholeheartedly agree. Not leaving a will behind can be a nightmare. And I think that is quite known. I think everyone's heard a story of a friend just going through it. But that being said, there's still about, there are, I believe 50 to 70 is the official statistic of people in Australia alone that don't have a will. That makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of barriers there. Number one that keeps coming up on, surveys, things like that, is just procrastination. So why would you want to think about dying while you're still alive? It really makes sense, and you've got about a million other things to do. I get it, but it is very important to create a will, and good manners for the loved ones that you leave, basically. That's why you do it. The second point was really a tie between the will being too expensive and also just not worth it. And that's so valid because the cost of living crisis is fully rampant at the moment. Not everybody has a spare couple hundred or thousand, as the case may be, to just pop down to the solicitor's office and, update their will or get a will done up. That's completely fair. But look, just luckily with the advent of online wills in general, and especially with robust platforms like Gathered Here, hopefully these hurdles and barriers to creating a will are able to be overcome. And yeah, speaking of which, I think it will help to just address some of these big legal questions to ease your mind a little bit about why an online will may be suitable and why that may solve a solution for you that you're having in relation to not having a will. So that's a lot of questions on the screen, and we do hear them pretty regularly. The big one, obviously, that I'd love to just get out of the way is, are online wills actually really legal? And just noting we will go through the rest of these questions throughout the course of our presentation. Yes, online wills are absolutely legal. This would be a really, really short session if I said that they weren't legal. But look, regardless of the type of will, so if we're talking about an online will, so one that's created online, a will made at your solicitor's office, a post office will kit, all of them are looking to tick the same boxes. So we want what's called a formal will. In a nutshell, the state that you live in, the government is going to determine what those boxes are. And yeah, largely speaking, it's pretty similar state to state. You're looking at one, you need a physically printed or written document, right? And in terms of an online will, it must be printed after you create it. It must be intended to be your last will. That document must be signed by the will maker and two independent witnesses. So it's best if they're people that aren't mentioned in the will at all. And it should all be witnessed in the same color pen. That's a really good tip. If you're doing an online will, please all use the same pen, same color pen, very important. They need to have a consistent date on the will, and also you should secure your will with a staple in the top left corner if we're talking about online wills, and not remove that staple. Some pesky extras. You need capacity. So you have to have your marbles, so to speak, to create a will. And also, you can't be forced into signing something you don't want to. So if somebody is holding a gun to your head and you sign your will, that's not going to be a valid will. It won't hold up in court. So those requirements apply to every type of will. Yeah, as long as you follow the signing instructions for an online will provider that's given to you to a T, you will not have any issues, and your will be executed properly and likely be deemed a formal will, which is really exciting. And on that note, so I'm not just making things up, we can ask ourselves the question, how have online wills actually been standing up in court? So when push comes to shove, how have they been performing? Very excited to share this information with everybody. So to put the success really of our online wills into context, we did a little bit of a analysis over the course of a year on wills that came across the probate team's desk. And every single one of the 20 online wills that we received after someone having passed away were all deemed valid by the courts. So that means we obtained probate on all 20 of those wills. What does that mean? What even is probate? All right, so I've got this to show you. This is a piece of paper that's been redacted, and this is what we're talking about when we talk about probate. It's a document that the Supreme Court will give to your executor in exchange for your original will. So the court is going to keep that original will forever and give your executor that piece of paper. It's going to have your executor's name on it, your name on it. It's going to say this is probate, and the will is regi-dig. They will scrutinize the will to make sure those requirements we talked about earlier have all been met. And if they're satisfied, that's how you get probate. And that's really what it means when we're talking about a will standing up in court. Not every person needs to go through this process. Sometimes you can finalize an estate just with a signed will as well, although more often than not these days, we are seeing requests for probate coming through, and more people are requiring probate. Yeah, and I could talk about that for a long time. That's a whole other session, but definitely that's something to consider. So it's best to get, at the very minimum, a solid will in place. Yes, to alleviate any stress that your executor may need to go through after your passing. On that note, I'm going to freak everybody out for a second. I think we all imagine wills to just be perfect all the time, and that is so far from the truth. So a lot of the time, more often than not, by the time we're submitting these wills to probate, be it an online will, a solicitor drafted will, post office will kit, we are seeing a lot of errors in these documents. And I'm not telling you this to disparage you. I'm telling you this to let you know there is usually a solution for the kinds of common errors that we see. And in our case, again, I'll reiterate that statistic, 100% of online wills have successfully achieved probate across our desk, which is so good. We've broken down the different types of wills that were a part of our analysis on the screen here, as you can see, and listed out some of the types of errors that we found in these will documents. As you can see, solicitor drafted wills, and this is not a dig at solicitor drafted wills because I do them too, but they do have a larger variety of errors than, say, online wills. Yeah, this isn't surprising, and it's largely because solicitor drafted wills are still being drafted by a human, so there's still room for human error. Whereas for our online wills that we provide, it is our software and our computer generating clauses, names, things like that. So there is less room for error. For example, let's take unclear wording that's listed under solicitor drafted wills as an error. Very unlikely to have that with an online will that's properly created because you're just filling out fields and getting a generated document. Post office kits and self-typed wills are going to be open to a lot more room for error than online wills. That is because there's a lot more freedom in what you write, just like a solicitor drafted will, because it's still a human filling in fields, writing wishes and things like that. An example that I can give in this respect is I had a post office will kit come across my desk in the past couple of months, and unfortunately the instructions were not read correctly, and the poor lady ended up leaving an executor, and that was it. There was no estate given away in her will, which was really it was a bit of a nightmare. And that's just a classic that can happen with post office kits because they're not clear a lot of the time. So the way I see it, there's a distinction. It's like you either go down the solicitor drafted will route or you go down the self-draft will route. And down the self-draft will route, it's either online, post office, or self-typed. Just for, among other reasons, the example I've just given, online wills are much preferable to a post office will kit or a self-typed will due to the much smaller margin of error that can occur when making them. Yeah, so now that I've freaked everybody out, my apologies. when mistakes are made, and I did allude to this, we can fix them, right? And this is something I'm also passionate about, is just, yeah, putting out fires and making these poor people's lives easier. But a common one, I'll probably yeah, stick to one example today, is where somebody has removed staples from a will, and we do see this across, all types of wills, again, solicitor wills, at-home wills, etc. The court is going to ask you why was the staple removed? They're going to just presume that someone's up to something nefarious, and it's a lot more work. So that's just an example. What we usually do is we'll gather information from the executor, or from the person who found the will, and get them to swear a legal statement that, there was no other pages to the will, among other things, and that they've searched high and low, and that will in front of the court is in fact the whole will and nothing but the will. But yeah, that's an example. So things like this occur. A tip, if you do go down the online will route, especially through Gathered Here, we have a very comprehensive signing instructions page. So you will be able to follow that to a T, and you will not have any issues. And don't unstaple your will. Once it's stapled, just keep that all together, and you will not go wrong. Just on the note as well of how long before we start, seeing how robust our online wills are, and how long until we see them going through probate. Hopefully it's clear from this presentation so far, but we are seeing quite a high proportion go through probate, and successfully too at that, which is great. For context, just to break down this little chart that's on the screen a little bit, of that analysis we did, only 56, so just over half percent of the wills that came across our desk were actually done through a solicitor. That's phenomenal, because it means that 44% of wills were done through an alternative route. And overall, 21% of the wills that came across our desk were online wills. So I wouldn't be shocked, as the word gets out about how online wills are actually solid and can hold up in court. I expect those numbers to increase, because as we discussed earlier, it's just too expensive, too time consuming to get into a solicitor, and it's just not not on people's bingo cards at the moment. So yeah, I'll watch this space. It's very exciting, because maybe 10 years ago this was just unheard of, and yeah, the solicitor made wills would have been much higher as a percentage. So that's great. In terms of the actual types of estates, so maybe the amount of money people have that make online wills that we're seeing, as you can see, $575,000 was the average estate value of people that have gathered here online wills that have gone through probate. So it really isn't just low worth individuals using this free platform. It's people with significant assets putting their trust in an online will service, and bearing in mind too that that's an average. So we would be seeing people with much larger estate values and much lower estate values using online wills as well, which is great, because it's just really a testament that it's a tool that could be used by anyone, which is really the point. And on that note too, it's really, if you've got a simple estate and you just want to get a will done that's free, you don't want to wait 6 weeks to get in to see a solicitor, and you know what you want to put down, that's for you. Simple estate, simple will. This will be absolutely perfect for you. Also, people that are rural, or potentially, unable to leave bed for whatever reason. Another really good tip is to maybe get onto an online will. But if you've got anything fancy that you want to do, so if you want to cut children out, if you're scared of your estate getting contested, if you want to create a testamentary trust, a lot of these things, if you have a very high value estate and you're like, receiving consult from a financial planner, maybe go consult a solicitor as well and get some solid estate planning advice is what I would say. So obviously, yeah, if you want to do something simple, go for your online will. If you want to do anything complicated at all, or if you're even in doubt, just book an appointment with a solicitor. That's the best advice I can give. And just on that note, we're kind of up to this point in the presentation where I'm about to go through some case studies, and it's quite hypocritical of me because this first one, this first case study who came across our desk, he's one who, yeah, he used our will leading up to his death. He made his will 4 years before he died. And yeah, basically he separated from his spouse. So that would be great. I would be telling him you should probably go get some advice from a solicitor just to make sure you're got all your ducks in a row. And he's left his assets in a really interesting way. I mean, a non-conventional way to his spouse, child, stepchild, and sister. And we were a bit worried, his $680,000 estate was going to get contested, but it didn't. So this was fine. We got probate on the will. And it was completely okay, which we were all very relieved about. And obviously Arthur is not his actual name. Arthur is a pseudonym, again, just protecting everybody's identity. This case study, oh my goodness. So Ben, it was a bit sad. So Ben was bedridden. He was one of those ones, and he just, yeah, he couldn't get out to see his solicitor. He previously had a solicitor made will. And he just needed to update it to get his affairs in order for his children, but he couldn't get out of bed. His daughter got him onto Gathered Here, and he made a will. Everything was peachy, but unbeknownst to anybody else, he was diagnosed with dementia maybe a day before he died. And he only made that will 1 month before he died. So the court, being the court, going, all right, he's got, $880,000 sitting there. Did you have your marbles when you made the will, Ben? So we did have to consult with Ben's doctor to prove to the court that Ben had his capacity when he created a will, which was fine. And we were able to get that over the line. It is worth noting that issues of capacity do arise frequently in every single type of will that is made, like probably more often in solicitor made wills. A hot tip, something I would advise everybody to do. We're a bit ageist in Australia, but once you get to 65, you should be getting a letter from your general practitioner that states you have capacity to make a will as close to the date of you making a will as you do. And then your executor should keep that letter with your will once you execute it. And don't staple the letter to the will, just keep it with the will. Yeah, in case this happens, that's a really good example. So that's something that's crucial for everyone to do, I would say. And this last case study, yeah, so Charlie was from South Australia and he had a $1.3 million estate. He knew he was going to pass away, so he's made a will, 3 months just prior to him passing. And yeah, he did everything right. So Charlie's done everything absolutely correctly. And very unfortunately, it was after the fact. His executor or, children needed to unstaple the will a few times. There was a couple of little snake bites in the will there to make photocopies and, do all sorts of things. And the court wanted to know, why has this been unstapled? And they made a big deal about it. But we got it over the line. We had to, of course, get evidence that, nothing was tampered with. There was no other pages of the will. And we just got that through getting statements from the executor and other relevant people. Those are, that again, that was a Gathered Here will. So that was really lovely just to get through probate in such a yucky scenario where the court is being very cautious. So they should, though. As a wrap up, now we've kind of sped through all of these questions, but in a nutshell, what I'd like to just impress upon everyone is if you have a simple estate, absolutely look into doing an online will. Follow the signing instructions really carefully. You'll note on the Gathered Here website, it prompts you to check out your superannuation as well. Because depending on your situation, super may not form part of your estate. Usually it doesn't. So contact your super fund directly, and make sure you've got a binding death benefit nomination in place. It's really strange, and that's a whole topic for another presentation. But yeah, look, you will be totally fine. Looking to the future, I expect that online wills are going to receive more popularity, and more discourse just in the general legal community too. And I'm sure we'll continue to see successful cases going through probate, as well, further, driving home that it is a robust legal will and a good option if you just need to get something quick and simple down and done on paper. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening to me yap. If you are one of the millions of Aussies that don't have a will at the moment, I absolutely encourage you to, yeah, think about whether an online will or a Gathered Here online will might just do the trick, for what you're after. It takes about 10 to 30 minutes to do. And yeah, you can secure your loved ones' peace of mind, with that 10 to 30 minutes of your time. Or obviously for more complex scenarios, because life just isn't simple sometimes, contact your local wills and estates lawyer, or even our legal team will be glad to help. We've seen everything weird and wonderful under the sun, as you can imagine. And if you would like to know more about Gathered Here, who we are, etc., or even find that link to create an online will, you can scan that QR code there and it should take you right through to our website. So, all right. Thanks again for your time, and I hope everybody goes and makes a will.